I never thought of myself as the kind of man who gets cheated on. Not because I was perfect, not because I believed in some fairy tale version of marriage, but because I thought we had an understanding. I worked, I provided, I made sure she had everything she needed. That was enough, wasn't it? That was the unspoken agreement. I knew marriage wasn't just about love. It was about routine, about commitment, about showing up day after day, even when things weren't exciting anymore. I never claimed to be a romantic. I wasn't one for flowers or candlelit dinners, but I made sure the bills were paid, made sure she had a comfortable life, made sure she never had to worry about anything. And in return, I thought she was loyal. I thought she respected what we built. But people don't just wake up one day and decide to throw it all away. No, they do it slowly, in small, careful steps, like testing the water before diving in. I should have noticed the signs earlier. It started with the phone, how it was always in her hand, how she angled the screen away from me when I walked by. She used to leave it sitting on the kitchen counter, used to forget it in the bedroom or on a nightstand without a second thought. Now, it never left her side. If it buzzed while we were watching TV, she'd pick it up too quickly, fingers tapping out a response before I even had a chance to ask who it was. I brushed it off at first, told myself I was overthinking. Women were just more attached to their phones these days, weren't they? Social media, endless group chats, whatever. It wasn't my business. I wasn't the kind of man to hover over her shoulder, to demand to know who she was talking to every minute of the day. But then there were the trips to the store. The grocery store, to be exact. The small one down the street, the one that was a little overpriced, a little inconvenient. It wasn't the store we used to go to. It wasn't the one she'd preferred for years. But suddenly, it was the only one she wanted to shop at. "I just like the produce there," she said one night when I questioned it. "Their fruits and vegetables are way fresher." I didn't think much of it. At least, not until she started going alone. At first, it was because she said I rushed her too much. "You don't like grocery shopping," she laughed, waving me off. "You always get impatient. Just let me go, it's easier that way." Then it became about timing. "I'll just stop on my way home," she'd say, even when I knew damn well she wasn't driving past it. Or, "I forgot something, I'll just run in real quick." Once I half-jokingly offered to go for her, and she shut that down fast. "No, I'll do it," she said, grabbing her keys with an urgency that didn't make sense. I noticed, but I didn't push. I didn't want to be the kind of husband who accused his wife of something without proof. And then, one night, proof came to me. It was late, and I was in the kitchen grabbing a beer. She'd left her phone sitting on the counter, something she hadn't done in months. It was face up, the screen glowing in the dim light of the room. I wouldn't have looked if it hadn't buzzed the second I reached for the fridge handle. A message, a name I didn't recognize at first. "Evan Store." It was short, too short. "Can't wait to see you again. Last time was amazing." I felt it before I fully understood it. Something twisting in my stomach, a slow, burning dread spreading through my chest. I stood there for a moment, gripping the fridge handle, staring at those words like they weren't real. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was one of her co-workers messing around. Maybe. I unlocked the phone. My hands moved before my brain could stop them. The messages were right there. Not one, not two, but months' worth. Long chains of them. Laughing, teasing, inside jokes I didn't understand. Plans to meet. Him calling her beautiful. Her calling him babe. I felt sick. The more I scrolled, the worse it got. There was no misinterpreting what I was seeing. He wasn't just some guy. He wasn't just a friend. She was his. And he knew it. The cockiness in his messages made my blood boil. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't worried. He was secure. Comfortable. He didn't see me as a threat. Didn't see me as a factor at all. I knew him. Not well, but I had seen him before. A kid, really. A damn store clerk who bagged groceries and stocked shelves. I had walked past him a dozen times, had probably nodded at him without a second thought. And all this time, he had been sleeping with my wife. I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles went white. My breathing was loud, too loud. I felt something rise up inside me. Something dark, something sharp-edged and dangerous. The shower was still running. She was in there, humming to herself, oblivious, acting like everything was normal. I could have stormed in right then. Could have shoved the phone in her face. Could have demanded an explanation. Could have yelled until my throat was raw. But I didn't. Because something in me had shifted. I wasn't going to ask her why. I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this. No, I was going to make sure she regretted every damn second of it. I stood there in the dim glow of the kitchen, my mind racing like a freight train barreling toward a cliff. My fingers clenched around her phone so tightly my knuckles ached. The messages were right there, staring back at me like a sick joke, like some twisted alternate reality where I wasn't her husband, just some fool she laughed about behind my back. She was still in the shower. I could hear the water running, the occasional splash as she moved around, completely unaware that her entire world had just cracked open. I should have been the kind of man to confront her right then and there, to storm into that bathroom and drag the truth out of her while she was still dripping wet, before she had time to think of excuses. But I wasn't calm enough for that. Not yet, because a part of me wanted to make her sweat. I scrolled through the messages again, slower this time, forcing myself to absorb every single word. I wanted to understand just how deep this went. The text stretched back months. They talked like they had a routine, like this wasn't just some spur-of-the-moment mistake. No, this was something else. Something planned. Something deliberate. There were inside jokes I didn't understand, ones I was never meant to understand. Mentions of places they had been, of moments they had shared that I hadn't even noticed happening right under my nose. And worst of all, the way she spoke to him. Sweet, playful, eager, like a teenager with a crush. Like she had never spoken to me. I kept scrolling, each message adding fuel to the fire burning inside me. And then I saw it. A picture. It wasn't anything too explicit. Just her in the driver's seat of her car, a teasing smile on her lips, her hair slightly tousled, a glimpse of bare skin where her shirt dipped too low. But I knew that smile. That wasn't a casual selfie. That was the kind of picture a woman sends when she wants a man to want her. And he did. His response made that clear. You're killing me, babe. Wish I could be there right now. I wanted to smash the phone right then and there. I wanted to drive to that damn grocery store and wipe the smugness right off that kid's face. But first, I needed to see how deep her lies would go. The shower stopped. A few seconds later, I heard the rustle of a towel, the soft sound of her bare feet on the tile. I slipped the phone back onto the counter where she had left it, then walked over to the fridge, opening it like I had been standing there for no reason at all. I grabbed a beer, twisted off the cap, and took a long, slow drink. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel in my throat, but my face was a mask. The bathroom door creaked open. A moment later, she walked into the kitchen, wrapped in a towel, her damp hair clinging to her shoulders. She barely glanced at me as she crossed to the counter, reaching for her phone like it was second nature. And then, hesitation, a flicker of something in her eyes, something almost imperceptible. Had I moved it slightly? Had I left the screen tilted just a little differently than before? I didn't know, but I saw the way her breath hitched, the way her fingers paused before picking it up. She knew, maybe not the full extent of it. Maybe she thought I had only seen the message on the lock screen, not opened the whole damn thread. But she knew something was off, and I could see the gears turning in her head. She turned her back to me as she swiped at the screen, probably deleting messages. Maybe even blocking his number for now, just in case. Stupid. Like I hadn't already seen everything. Like I didn't already know. I took another slow sip of beer, watching her every move, waiting for her to say something. But she didn't. Not yet. She was waiting too, seeing if I would break first. I almost wanted to laugh. She played innocent well. Too well. She moved around the kitchen like nothing was wrong, opening a cupboard, grabbing a glass of water, pretending she hadn't just wiped away her little secret. And I let her. For now. She turned back to me finally, her face carefully neutral. You okay? I almost admired how easily she slipped into it. A simple question, light and casual, as if she hadn't just spent the past few seconds in a quiet panic. I just shrugged. Yeah, just tired. A test. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but she hesitated. If she was smart, she'd ask if I saw her phone. If she was really smart, she'd come clean before I had the chance to tear her apart. But she didn't. She just nodded and took a sip of water, as if everything was fine, as if I didn't already know the truth. I could feel the anger burning just beneath my skin, coiled so tightly It was almost suffocating. But I didn't let it show. Not yet. Because she had just made her first mistake. She was going to keep lying. And I was going to make damn sure she regretted it. The next morning, I woke up before she did. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, my mind running through every message, every little detail that I had read the night before. My wife, had been sending flirty texts and God knows what else to some store clerk. The thought of it made my blood boil all over again. I turned my head and looked at her. She was sleeping peacefully, her face relaxed, her breathing steady, like she had no worries in the world, like she hadn't spent the past few months sneaking around behind my back. I want to wake her up right then and there. Want to shake her, force her to admit it. But I didn't, because I wanted to see just how long she'd keep up this little act. Instead, I got out of bed quietly, moving through the house as if it were any other morning. I made coffee, checked my phone, scrolled through the news. All the while I was waiting, listening, watching. She came out of the bedroom about 20 minutes later, stretching and yawning like she hadn't just spent the night lying beside a man she was betraying. "Morning," she said, rubbing her eyes. I just nodded, sipping my coffee. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. She moved around the kitchen, pouring herself a cup, glancing at me every so often like she was trying to gauge my mood. I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to act normal, waiting to see if I had noticed anything last night. I said nothing, just sat there, letting the silence drag out. And that's when she made her next mistake. She pulled out her phone. At first, she just held it, scrolling absent-mindedly like she always did in the mornings. But then, a slight tension crept into her shoulders. Her thumb moved a little too quickly. She was checking to see if he had texted, checking to make sure her tracks were covered. I could see the exact moment she relaxed. She thought she was in the clear. I took another slow sip of coffee, forcing my face to stay blank. Let her believe it. Let her think she had gotten away with it for just a little longer. Because the more comfortable she got, the more careless she'd become. "I've got to run a few errands later," she said casually, setting her mug down. That's what she called them, errands. Like I didn't know exactly what that meant. I didn't respond right away. Just let the words hang there. "Oh yeah," I said finally, keeping my voice neutral. She nodded, turning toward the fridge. "Yeah, just a few things to take care of. Might stop by the store, too." The store. I gripped my coffee mug so hard I thought it might crack. But still, I said nothing. She went about her morning as if nothing was wrong, as if she wasn't slipping out in the middle of the day to see her little grocery store boyfriend. It was almost insulting how easy she thought this was going to be. I let her leave without a word. Let her grab her keys, sling her purse over her shoulder, press a quick, meaningless kiss against my cheek before heading out the door. She didn't even hesitate, didn't even second-guess it. She really thought I was that much of a fool. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't sitting back and doing nothing. No, I had my own plans. I finished my coffee, set my mug in the sink, and grabbed my keys. Because today I was going to see exactly how far this went. I sat in my truck for a while after she left, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My brain was running on two tracks, one filled with the anger that had been burning in me since I read those messages, the other trying to stay focused, stay smart. Because this wasn't about confronting her yet. This was about watching her lie with my own eyes. She thought she had covered her tracks. She thought she had wiped away the evidence, deleted the messages, maybe even told that little store clerk to lay low for a while. She thought I was sitting at home, none the wiser, going about my day like some clueless idiot. And I wanted her to keep thinking that. I started the truck and pulled out of the driveway, heading in the same direction she had gone. I didn't tail her too closely. She wasn't expecting to be followed, but I didn't want to give her any reason to glance in the rear view and spot me. The roads were familiar. We had driven them together hundreds of times. Grocery runs, weekend errands, random late-night trips when she suddenly craved ice cream. The store wasn't far, just a few blocks over. I kept my distance, my fingers drumming against the steering wheel as I watched her car turn into the parking lot. She pulled into a spot near the front, but instead of getting out right away, she sat there for a moment, waiting. I felt my jaw tighten, and then I saw him. Evan, the store clerk. He came out of the side entrance, The one employees used when they went on break. He wasn't in uniform. No apron, no name tag. Just a regular shirt and jeans, his hands in his pockets, like he wasn't at work at all. She had told me she was running errands. But there she was, sitting in her car, waiting for this kid like a teenager sneaking around behind her parents' backs. I gritted my teeth as she finally stepped out of the car. She didn't just walk to him. She lit up. That was what got me the most. That damn smile. The one I hadn't seen in years, the one that used to be for me. She flipped her hair over her shoulder, tilting her head just enough to make it look effortless, like she had practiced this move 100 times before. And he looked at her like he had already won, like he knew she wasn't walking away. I forced myself to stay in the truck, my fingers twitching against my thigh. Every instinct in my body told me to get out, to walk right up to them, to knock that smug expression off his face so hard he'd never smile at my wife again. But I didn't, because I wanted to see exactly what she would do when she thought no one was watching. She reached out, fingers brushing against his arm in a way that made my stomach churn. She was talking low, quiet, intimate. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. She was making excuses. I knew that look. She was probably saying she couldn't stay long. Maybe giving him some sob story about how things were complicated, how she was stuck in her marriage, how she wished she could be with him, but just couldn't leave yet. It was all bullshit. And then he reached for her. Not in some subtle way. Not just a quick touch. No. His hand slid down her back, fingers resting right at the edge of her hip, just enough to claim her, to stake his territory. And she let him. That was the moment I saw red. I had spent the whole morning watching her, letting her lie to my face, following her just to confirm what I already knew. But seeing it in person, that was different. That was the kind of thing a man doesn't just let go. I gripped the door handle of my truck, ready to throw it open, ready to end this right here, right now. But then something stopped me, because I wasn't done yet. This wasn't just about catching her. It wasn't just about confronting her. It was about making sure she regretted it. I forced myself to take a slow breath, my fingers flexing before I let go of the door handle. Not yet. They were still talking, still standing too close, still pretending the world around them didn't exist. And then, just like that, she pulled away. She glanced over her shoulder, checking the lot. Checking for me. Like some small part of her knew she was doing something wrong. Like she still had just enough guilt left to worry about getting caught. She mumbled something to him, something quick, something dismissive, and then she was turning back toward her car. I watched as she got in, her face neutral again, back to the perfect little wife, driving home to her husband like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just let another man touch her. I gripped the steering wheel, my teeth grinding together as I watched Evan disappear back into the store, probably smug as hell, probably thinking he had won. I started my truck, and as I pulled out of the lot, one thing became clear. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't drive straight home. I needed a minute. Maybe more than a minute. The rage sitting in my chest felt like a living thing, something clawing at my ribs, begging to be let out. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my fingers ached, my knuckles bone white. Every part of me wanted to turn the truck around, walk straight into that store, and teach that kid exactly what it meant to put his hands on another man's wife. But that wasn't enough. Knocking him on his ass might have felt good, but it wouldn't fix what was broken. It wouldn't erase the look on her face when she saw him. The way she touched him, the way she lit up like he was the only thing that mattered. That was the part that kept replaying in my mind. Not the messages, not the little inside jokes they had been trading behind my back. Her, the way she smiled at him, the way she used to smile at me. I clenched my jaw, forcing the thought away. I had to be smart about this. I had to think. So instead of heading straight home, I drove around for a while, letting the miles pass under my tires, letting the hum of the engine settle the chaos in my head. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my hands had stopped shaking. She was already inside. Of course she was. She'd left before me. After all, driving home like she had just checked off another errand on her list instead of sneaking off to whisper to some kid in a grocery store parking lot. I sat there for a second, just staring at the house. How many times had I walked through that front door thinking my life was normal? That my marriage was solid? That everything was fine? Too many. Not anymore. I got out of the truck, my movement slow, controlled. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't storming in like some fool who had just discovered his wife was a liar. No, I was past that. Now, I wanted to see just how far she would go. I stepped inside and immediately heard her in the kitchen. Dishes clinking, the faint sound of water running, the hum of the refrigerator. A perfectly normal scene, as if she wasn't a damn traitor. I let the door close behind me a little harder than necessary. She turned at the sound, a smile already in place, the kind she used when she was trying to look effortless. Like she hadn't just spent the past hour making sure another man still wanted her. "You're home early," she said lightly, drying her hands on a dish towel. I just looked at her. She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, but I caught it. She wasn't sure. Was I acting normal? Had she covered her tracks well enough? I shrugged, moving past her toward the fridge, making a show of grabbing a beer. Finished up everything faster than I thought. She nodded, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Nice." I got the shopping done. There it was. The lie. I let that sit for a moment, staring at the bottle in my hand. She didn't even flinch. She just kept drying her hands, watching me carefully from the corner of her eye, waiting to see if I was going to press her. I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I leaned against the counter, twisting the cap off my beer. "See anyone you know?" Her grip on the dish towel tightened ever so slightly. I took a slow sip, letting my eyes linger on her face. "At the store. Run into anyone." She shook her head a little too quickly. "No, not really. Just grabbed what I needed and came home." The casual way she said it nearly made me laugh. She was good. I had to give her that. Lying straight to my face like it was the easiest thing in the world. I set my beer down, studying her. "You sure?" She turned back to the sink, busying herself with rinsing off a plate, her voice perfectly steady. "Yeah. Why? Why?" Because I had watched her. Because I had sat in my truck and watched her lean into another man like she belonged to him, not me. Because I had seen her light up at the sight of him the way she never did when she saw me anymore. And she had the audacity to stand there, rinsing plates like a good little wife, lying to me like she wasn't betraying me with every damn breath. I forced a smile, taking another sip of my beer. No reason. Just asking. She didn't turn around, but I saw the way her shoulders relaxed just a bit. She thought she was in the clear, and that pissed me off more than anything. She really believed I was that much of an idiot. She shut off the sink and dried her hands again, finally turning back toward me with that same easy smile, wanting to make something for dinner. Like nothing had changed. Like we were just another normal married couple at the end of a normal day. My grip tightened around the beer bottle. I wanted to drag her out of this lie. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders, shake her until she admitted what she had done, until she saw what she had ruined. But that wasn't enough. She had been sneaking around for months, playing a game. Now, I was going to play, too. I smiled, setting my beer down. Sure. Her eyes flicked over my face again, like she was trying to gauge if something was off. But when she didn't find anything, she nodded and turned back to the fridge. And just like that, the lie continued. But not for long, because now I knew just how good she was at this. How easily she could slip into deception, which meant I had to be better. I wasn't going to confront her yet. Not until she was completely comfortable. Not until she thought she had one. Because when I finally did, she wasn't going to see it coming. The next few days were a test. Not for me. For her. I watched. I listened. I let her lie to me over and over again. Each word another nail in the coffin she was building for herself. She didn't suspect a thing. She thought she had gotten away with it. Thought she had covered her tracks well enough that I was none the wiser. And I let her believe it. I still went to work. Still kissed her on the forehead in the mornings before leaving. Still sent the occasional text during the day. Still played the role of the devoted husband. And she played the devoted wife just as easily. She still made dinner. Still asked about my day. Still curled up next to me on the couch at night, scrolling through her phone like she wasn't hiding something. It made me sick, because now every single moment we shared, every glance, every word, every little act of affection, I knew the truth behind it. It was all an act. I studied her more carefully than ever now. Every time she touched her phone, every time she left the room to take a call, every time she claimed she needed to run errands or grab something real quick. It didn't take long to notice the patterns. She would always leave around the same time. Always make sure I was busy with something before heading out. Always come back acting just a little too normal, as if she had practiced it in the mirror beforehand. The grocery store had become her favorite excuse. That was the one that pissed me off the most. She still had the audacity to pretend she was going there to buy things for me. For us. Like I was supposed to sit here and enjoy the dinner she made, knowing damn well she had just come from seeing him. She must have thought she was real clever. And maybe, to someone else, she would have been. But I'd already seen it. I'd already watched her meet him in the parking lot, watched her lean into him, let him put his hands on her like she wasn't married, like she wasn't supposed to be mine. And now, it was only a matter of time before she slipped up again. So I waited. And sure enough, it didn't take long. The perfect lie. It was a Saturday morning, and she was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs. The smell of coffee filled the air, a plate of toast and eggs sitting on the counter, like she was some kind of picture-perfect wife. I leaned against the doorway, watching her for a moment, wondering how many times she had done this after coming back from him. She glanced up and smiled. "Morning." I forced myself to smile back. "Morning." She poured herself a cup of coffee, moving around the kitchen with that same effortless ease, like she had nothing to hide. I was thinking about heading out for a bit later. We need a few things from the store. There it was. The excuse. I took a slow sip of coffee, keeping my expression neutral. "Oh yeah? What do we need?" She barely hesitated. "Just a few things, milk, eggs, some stuff for dinner." I figured I'd grab a coffee while I was out. Maybe run by the pharmacy too. She said it so easily, like it was nothing, like she hadn't just used the exact same excuse a few days ago. I set my mug down, tilting my head slightly. "You sure we need all that?" "Pretty sure we still have milk." I saw the flicker of something in her eyes before she forced her expression to stay casual. Doubt, worry, but only for a second. She waved a hand. "I think we're running low. Besides, I don't mind going. It gets me out of the house for a bit. It gets me out of the house." I wanted to laugh. Yeah, because she had somewhere better to be. I pretended to consider it for a moment, then shrugged. "All right, sounds good." I saw the relief in her eyes before she turned away. She thought she had won. That was mistake number one. The follow-up. She left an hour later, grabbing her purse, and keys like this was just another ordinary trip. She kissed me on the cheek before heading out, like she wasn't lying through her teeth. I waited exactly 2 minutes before grabbing my keys and heading out after her. I knew where she was going. She had no reason to go anywhere else. I kept my distance this time, making sure she wouldn't see me in her mirrors. I had learned from the last time I wasn't just following her to the store. I was watching for what happened after. She parked in the same spot, walked inside like nothing was wrong. I waited, watching, my fingers tapping against the steering wheel. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Then, just like I expected, she came back out. Not alone. Him, Evan, the damn store clerk. He was waiting for her this time, standing by the side of the building, out of sight from most of the parking lot. And she went to him. Not even a second of hesitation. She looked around, just once a quick glance, before stepping closer, reaching for him, that same damn smile on her face. Like she belonged to him. I felt something snap inside me. I clenched my jaw, gripping the steering wheel so hard I thought I might break it. I want to get out. Walk over there. End this. But I forced myself to stay put. Because I had a better idea. The plan. I took out my phone and snapped a picture. Then another. And another. Every angle. Every touch. Every moment she leaned in, looking at him like he was something special. She had no idea she was being watched. No idea that every single move she made was being documented. I let them have their little moment. Let her dig her own grave just a little deeper. Then I put my truck in reverse, pulled out of the lot, and drove away. Because now I had proof. Not just of the affair, but of how easily she lied. And when I finally showed her, I wasn't going to give her a single second to talk her way out of it. I drove home with the photos still open on my phone, my thumbs scrolling through them again and again as if I needed to make sure they were real. But they were real. Every single one of them. My wife. With him. Standing too close. Smiling at him like he was the center of her damn universe. Letting him touch her. I had followed her. I had watched her lie to my face, leave my house, and slip into the arms of some kid who bagged groceries. And now I had the proof. There was no talking her way out of this. No misunderstanding. No twisting the truth. She was caught. And soon, she was going to know it, letting the trap close. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my hands had stopped shaking. The rage was still there, still smoldering beneath my skin, but it wasn't wild anymore. It was controlled, calculated. I had a plan now. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to destroy her excuses before she even had a chance to spit them out. I went inside, sat down at the kitchen table, and waited. I didn't have to wait long. 20 minutes later, I heard the sound of her car pulling in. The door opened. Her footsteps moved through the house. Light, casual, like nothing was wrong. I stayed where I was, staring at my phone, scrolling through the pictures one last time. Then she walked into the kitchen, dropping a few bags onto the counter with a sigh. "I swear, that store gets busier every weekend," she said with a little laugh, shaking her head. I had to wait 10 minutes just to check out. The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly, I almost had to admire it. Almost. She walked past me and pressed a quick kiss to my forehead before heading toward the fridge. I let her. I let her move around the kitchen like she wasn't a liar, like she hadn't just spent the past half hour wrapped up in another man. I clenched my jaw and looked down at my phone. This was it. I was done playing. "Hey," I said, my voice steady. "Come here a second." She glanced over her shoulder, one hand still halfway in the grocery bag. I held up my phone and turned the screen toward her. Her smile froze. The color drained from her face so fast, it was almost impressive. She didn't move, didn't breathe. She just stared, and I let her. I let her take it all in. The pictures, the proof, the evidence of every single lie she had told me. I didn't speak. I wanted to see what she would do. Her eyes flicked from the screen to my face, then back to the screen again. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, scrambling to find a way out. But there was no way out. I made sure of that. The excuses began. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then she let out a nervous little laugh. Forced, unsteady. This isn't what it looks like," she said quickly, her voice just a little too high-pitched. I cut her off before she could even get started. "Don't." She flinched. I stood up, setting my phone down on the table. I wasn't looking at the screen anymore. I was looking at her, at the woman who had been lying to me for months, at the woman who had smiled in my face, kissed me, cooked me dinner, curled up next to me in bed, while sneaking around behind my back, at the woman who still thought she could talk her way out of this. "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice low. "Not anymore." Her lips pressed together. I shook my head. "I followed you." Silence. Dead, suffocating silence. Her whole body went rigid. "You didn't just go to the store," I continued, my tone calm, deliberate. "You met him. You stood there with him, smiling, letting him touch you. And then you came home to me like nothing happened." She still wasn't speaking, because she knew there was nothing she could say. I leaned against the table, crossing my arms. "So go ahead. Explain. Tell me how I'm wrong." Her mouth opened again, but this time, nothing came out, because there was no excuse. No lie that could twist this into something innocent. Her hands clenched at her sides, her shoulders tensed. She was still trying to think of something, anything that could make this disappear. But when she finally spoke, it wasn't an apology. It was another lie. He's just a friend." I almost laughed. Almost. "A friend," I repeated, nodding slowly. "A friend who calls you babe? A friend who sends you messages about how he can't wait to see you again?" She swallowed hard. I was just being friendly. He misinterpreted things." I slammed my hand down on the table. She jumped. "Stop lying." She blinked rapidly, her breath coming quicker now. I swear I wasn't." "You were." My voice was steady, controlled. "You were." I gestured to my phone. "I have proof. You think I'm stupid? You think I didn't see how you looked at him?" "I didn't." "Say it." My voice dropped lower. "Say what you did." Her lower lip trembled. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. But she wouldn't. She wouldn't give me the truth. Even now, even when she was caught, when there was nowhere to run, she still wanted to lie. And that pissed me off more than anything. The final blow. I let the silence stretch, let her stand there, squirming, drowning in her own guilt. Then I picked up my phone again, and I called the number. Her number, the one Evan had been texting. She paled. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Loud, inescapable. Proof. She didn't move, didn't answer it, just stared at me like a deer caught in headlights. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then I ended the call and set my phone back down. Game's over, I said quietly. You lost. Her lips parted, but I wasn't interested in what she had to say anymore. I turned and walked away, heading upstairs, leaving her standing there, caught in the wreckage of the lies she had built. Because this wasn't her choice anymore. It was mine, and she wasn't going to like what happened next.